Why do millions of people around the world feel such a powerful connection to Taylor Swift? It's not just admiration for her music or respect for her success. It's something deeper, something almost magnetic, that makes strangers cry at her concerts, defend her online as if she were family, and line up for hours just to stand in the same room. The truth is, Taylor Swift has mastered something far greater than music. She has mastered the art of turning her private struggles into public stories that people see themselves in. She doesn't just sing about love and loss. She transforms her most vulnerable moments into shared experiences that resonate on a massive scale. Consider how most celebrities handle setbacks. When they are criticized or humiliated, they retreat, they apologize, or they vanish from the spotlight until the dust settles. Taylor takes a very different path. She takes the wound, acknowledges it, and then reshapes it into art. Every heartbreak becomes a ballad. Every betrayal becomes a rallying cry. Every humiliation becomes part of a larger redemption arc. Instead of letting her scars silence her, she turns them into fuel for her story. This is where idolization begins. Fans don't see an untouchable superstar. They see a reflection of themselves, their heartbreaks, their doubts, their frustrations, and then they watch as she transforms those emotions into strength. It's not perfection that makes her magnetic. It's her ability to be publicly flawed while still rising higher each time. And it isn't only in the lyrics. It's in her presence. When she performs, she doesn't hide her emotions behind a polished mask. She lets people see the cracks, the tears, the anger, the joy. Instead of distancing the audience, it draws them closer. Because everyone secretly longs for that kind of freedom. To show everything you feel and still be celebrated for it. Psychologists call this a parasocial connection, the sense that you know someone you've never met. Taylor has perfected it. Through her music, interviews, and even her silences, she creates the feeling that her life is a story her fans are invited to participate in. It isn't just her victories they celebrate. It's their own, mirrored back at them through her narrative. And here's the surprising twist. Without the moments of humiliation and rejection, she might have remained just another talented artist. But those public struggles, the interruptions, the feuds, the criticisms, gave her the chance to transform weakness into myth. They gave her a stage not only to perform but to embody survival itself. That's why idolization goes beyond music. Taylor Swift represents the possibility of turning pain into power, of rewriting your story no matter how messy it begins. For millions, that is not just entertainment, it's inspiration. It's proof and it's hope. And that's where the fascination truly begins. Long before Taylor Swift became a billionaire and the center of global attention, she was simply a young girl with a notebook, a guitar, and an unshakable determination to make her voice heard. Growing up in Pennsylvania, she wasn't surrounded by the machinery of fame. She wasn't born into an entertainment dynasty. What she had was persistence and a belief that her words mattered. At the age of 11, she was already traveling to Nashville, walking into record labels with demo tapes in hand. Almost all of them turned her away. She was told she was too young, not ready, that her music didn't have a place. Rejection is often enough to silence even the most talented dreamers, but for Taylor, it seemed to ignite something stronger. Instead of shrinking back, she kept writing, kept practicing, and kept preparing for the moment the world would finally listen. Her beginning wasn't in the pop spotlight. It was in the more traditional world of country music, where her voice and songs stood out precisely because they sounded like pages from a diary. Teardrops on My Guitar and Tim McGraw weren't polished anthems carefully engineered for radio. They were heartfelt confessions. The kind of stories that made teenagers and young adults feel as though someone had finally put their private emotions into words. This is where her first real connection was built, not through grandeur, but through intimacy. She didn't appear untouchable, she appeared reachable. People could hear their own heartbreaks, their own unspoken longings in her songs. And that level of identification created a foundation of loyalty most artists never achieve. What makes this stage of her career so powerful in hindsight is that it tapped into a universal truth. We all long to be seen. Taylor's music held up a mirror for anyone who had ever felt unnoticed, rejected, or not good enough. And the twist, the almost unbelievable part, is that she transformed those very insecurities into gold. The same emotions that make most people feel small became the building blocks of her empire. For her fans, this was more than entertainment. It was validation. If she could turn rejection into recognition, maybe they could too. If she could take the pain of being overlooked and transform it into success, perhaps their own struggles weren't meaningless after all, and this wasn't an accident. From the very beginning, Taylor leaned into vulnerability. She didn't try to mask her awkwardness or pretend she had it all figured out. She allowed people to see the mess, and in doing so, she built something stronger than admiration. She built identification. This is why her early years matter so much to the story of idolization. They reveal a truth that echoes throughout her entire career. Taylor Swift never rose to power by pretending to be perfect. She rose by showing people that imperfection, when shared honestly, can become the most powerful connection of all. Every great story has a turning point, a moment when the hero is tested in front of the world. For Taylor Swift, those moments didn't come quietly. They happened under the brightest lights with millions watching, and they could have broken her career before it fully began. The first came on a stage that should have been her triumph. The 2009 MTV Video Music Awards. Taylor, just 19, stood with the microphone in her hand, moments away from thanking the world for honoring her work. Then Kanye West stormed the stage, cut her off, and declared that the award should have gone to Beyoncé. The shock on her face became an image replayed endlessly across the internet. For most people, humiliation like that is unforgettable and unbearable. But here's what matters. Taylor didn't disappear. She didn't let it be the final word. That interruption, instead of silencing her, became a symbol. Fans saw a young woman publicly disrespected and decided to stand with her. It was the first moment the world realized Taylor wasn't just writing music. She was carrying the weight of a much bigger story, one about resilience, survival, and the courage to keep going when people tried to take the spotlight away. But that was only the beginning. Fame is rarely a smooth path, and Taylor soon faced a series of feuds and betrayals that could have easily turned the public against her. The long-running tension with Katy Perry, the brutal fallout with Kanye and Kim Kardashian over the song Famous, and the media's relentless portrayal of her as manipulative and calculating. Each chapter added more pressure, more doubt, more scrutiny. For many artists, controversies like these become the cracks that end a career. For Taylor, they became building blocks. Every time she was attacked, she rewrote the narrative. When people mocked her for writing about ex-boyfriends, she leaned into it, joking about it on stage, and then released songs that turned the criticism into fuel. When tabloids tried to paint her as a villain, she reinvented herself completely, disappearing for months and returning with Reputation, an album that embraced the darker image and flipped it into one of her most successful eras. What makes these conflicts so important is not just the drama itself, but how she used them to deepen her connection with fans. Because if you've ever been gossiped about, if you've ever been misunderstood, you know how it feels to have your story twisted. Taylor didn't just survive that experience, she made it her brand. She gave her fans the blueprint for reclaiming their own narratives. And here's the deeper truth. Idolization doesn't come from perfection. It comes from struggle. People don't worship her because she never falls. They worship her because she falls, and then rises in front of them, stronger and sharper than before. Every feud, every insult, every betrayal becomes another chapter in the larger story. A story her fans feel they're living through with her. By the time she reemerged with a snake as her symbol, she had proven a point no one could ignore. Taylor Swift doesn't just endure conflict. She consumes it, transforms it, and uses it to rise higher than before. And that is why people don't just listen to her music. They follow her as if each scandal, each comeback is part of a myth unfolding in real time. For years, Taylor Swift was known for her lyrics, her performances, and her ability to turn heartbreak into art. But in 2019, the world saw another side of her, a strategist, a fighter, and a woman determined to own her story not just in words, but in law. The controversy began with the sale of her first 6 albums, her so-called masters. These original recordings, which held the music that had defined her career and made her a global name, were sold without her approval to music executive Scooter Braun. To outsiders, it may have looked like a business transaction, just another industry deal. But for Taylor, it was something much deeper. Those songs weren't just products. They were chapters of her life. Her teenage years, her heartbreaks, her growth, all captured in those recordings. And suddenly, the rights to them belonged to someone she believed had actively worked against her. The situation raised an uncomfortable truth that most fans had never considered. Even the biggest stars in the world often don't fully own the art they create. Behind the fame and the glamour, artists can be controlled by contracts, corporations, and executives. Taylor refused to accept it. Instead of remaining silent, she went public, speaking directly to her fans about what had happened. She described the pain of knowing her music, her very identity as an artist, was now in the hands of someone she couldn't trust. And then she made a decision that stunned both the industry and the public. She would re-record every one of her old albums, reclaiming her songs one by one on her own terms. This move was more than symbolic. It was a declaration of war on a system that had taken ownership away from countless musicians before her. It was also a masterclass in strategy. By re-recording her catalog, Taylor made the original masters less valuable. Fans, eager to support her, streamed and purchased the Taylor's version albums in massive numbers. Proving their loyalty went far beyond nostalgia. And here's the deeper layer. This wasn't just about music rights. It was about control. For years, Taylor's story had been shaped by others, by critics, by tabloids, by rivals. Taking back her masters was about rewriting the ending. It was about showing fans and the world that no matter how powerful the forces against you may seem, there's always a way to reclaim your narrative. If you've ever felt powerless, if you've ever had something stolen from you, whether it's credit for your work, your reputation, or even your voice, Taylor's fight resonates. She didn't just complain. She acted. And in doing so, she transformed herself from a pop star into a symbol of artistic freedom. For millions, this battle became a reminder. Strength doesn't just mean surviving humiliation. Sometimes it means standing up, even against giants, and finding a way to win. And once again, Taylor didn't just win. She changed the rules of the game entirely. If Taylor's battle for her masters proved her strength against the music industry, the next chapter showed her resilience against something even more unpredictable, the digital age itself. In recent years, technology has created new ways to tear people down. Rumors spread in seconds. False narratives catch fire faster than the truth can respond. And then came something even more invasive: deepfakes. In early 2024, explicit AI-generated images of Taylor Swift began circulating online. They weren't real, but they spread with alarming speed. Millions of people saw them. For a moment, it seemed like the one thing Taylor had always protected, her sense of dignity and self-image, was being ripped away. Most people in her position would have hidden, gone silent, or tried to erase the evidence. Taylor did the opposite. She and her team spoke out immediately, demanding accountability from the platforms that allowed the images to spread. Fans rallied to her side, outraged that technology could be used to violate someone so publicly. And once again, what could have been her downfall became another rallying point for her audience. But this wasn't the first time she had faced attacks. Years earlier, she had stood in court against a radio DJ who assaulted her, countersuing him for one symbolic dollar. That decision wasn't about the money. It was about sending a message. She didn't want silence. She wanted justice, and she wanted to show other victims that it was possible to stand up, even against those who seemed untouchable. What makes these crises so significant in the larger story of idolization is the way Taylor transforms them. She doesn't pretend they don't hurt. She acknowledges the pain, sometimes in interviews, sometimes in lyrics. But she never lets them define the ending. Every attempt to tear her down is absorbed and redirected, fueling the story fans are already invested in, the story of survival. If you've ever had your reputation attacked, if you've ever felt the sting of false rumors or lies, you know how isolating it can feel. But Taylor shows the opposite is possible. She shows that exposure doesn't always mean destruction. Sometimes it means you come back even stronger because you have nothing left to hide. And that's part of the secret. Idolization doesn't just come from the music or even the victories. It comes from the moments of crisis, when a figure we admire faces the very things we fear most: humiliation, violation, injustice. And instead of being broken, they rise. For Taylor, resilience isn't just a trait. It's a performance, a cycle, a promise to her fans. No matter what happens, no matter what technology invents, no matter how brutal the attacks become, she will not disappear. And in a world where so many people feel one scandal away from being destroyed, that resilience feels almost mythic. Taylor Swift doesn't just have fans. She has a following that behaves more like a movement, even a collective. And the psychology behind it explains why millions don't just admire her, they idolize her. Part of it begins with something psychologists call a parasocial bond. It's the illusion of intimacy between a public figure and their audience. Most celebrities have it to some degree, but Taylor perfected it. Think about her early songs. They weren't abstract poetry. They were confessions. Teardrops on my guitar. All too well. You belong with me. Each track felt less like a performance and more like reading a page ripped straight from her diary. When people listen to her music, they don't feel like she's singing to a faceless crowd. They feel like she's singing directly to them, and Taylor feeds that connection deliberately. She doesn't just release albums. She leaves clues. Secret messages hidden in lyrics, capital letters in her CD booklets, coded Easter eggs in music videos. For fans, every new release is a puzzle to solve. Suddenly, they're not passive listeners, they're active participants. They aren't just consuming music. They're decoding a story, and that makes them feel woven into the narrative itself. It's a brilliant form of narrative control. By planting mysteries, Taylor ensures her fans are always watching, always guessing, always coming back for more. And because every answer is hidden inside her art, the music gains a deeper emotional weight. But here's where the psychology gets even stronger. When fans defend her online, when they argue with critics, when they stay up late solving her lyrical riddles, they're investing part of their own identity in her story. She's no longer just an artist they admire. She becomes part of who they are. If you've ever been part of a fandom, you know the feeling. It's not just about enjoying the work. It's about belonging. Taylor's fan base, the Swifties, is not just a group of listeners. It's a community. People find friendship, validation, even purpose inside it. And Taylor knows this. She feeds it with small gestures, liking fan posts, showing up in unexpected ways, creating the sense that she notices, that she cares. And here's the twist. This bond doesn't break easily. When Taylor disappears for months, the fans stay. When she's criticized in headlines, they defend her. Because at that point, defending Taylor isn't just about her. It's about defending themselves, their own story reflected back at them through her songs. This is the psychology of idolization. Taylor Swift doesn't just perform for people. She makes them feel like her victories belong to them, and her wounds are theirs to heal alongside her. That's why millions stay invested, year after year, era after era. In a world where most celebrities feel distant and untouchable, Taylor created the opposite effect. She turned her life into an open book, and then handed the pen to her audience, inviting them to write in the margins. And once people believe they're part of your story, it's almost impossible for them to walk away. Every great story leaves unanswered questions. And with Taylor Swift, those questions are everywhere. The music is clear, but the meaning? That's where the obsession begins. For years, fans have whispered about hidden messages in her work. Not just Easter eggs she deliberately plants, but layers of meaning that may or may not be intentional. The most famous example is the so-called Gaylor theory, the idea that some of her lyrics and symbols hint at hidden truths about her personal life, her identity, or her relationships. Is it fact? Is it fiction? That's the point. The mystery itself keeps people searching. Taylor has never directly confirmed or denied these rumors in a way that stops the conversation. Instead, she leaves space, ambiguity, symbolism, metaphors that can be read more than one way. A lyric about a secret, a color choice in a music video, a glance in a performance. Fans analyze every detail like detectives working on a case that never closes. And here's the fascinating part. Even when people disagree about the meaning, they stay engaged. The debates, the theories, the late-night conversations online, they all keep her name alive, her story pulsing through the culture. It isn't just about sexuality. It's about the idea that Taylor Swift's world always contains more than meets the eye. That beneath the surface of every album lies another layer, another puzzle waiting to be solved. Psychologically, this is powerful. Humans are wired to crave mystery. We're drawn to the things we can't fully understand, because the unanswered questions live rent-free in our minds. And Taylor gives her fans exactly that. Just enough clarity to connect, and just enough secrecy to keep them guessing. But this goes deeper than hidden codes. It speaks to something universal, the longing for a story bigger than ourselves. Taylor doesn't just sing about love and loss. She frames her experiences as part of a mythic journey, where nothing is fully revealed and everything carries a double meaning. Fans idolize her not only because they relate to her, but because they believe there is more to her than anyone else can truly see. And here's the twist. Even if none of the rumors are true, even if every theory is pure projection, the effect is the same. Taylor has become a canvas for people's fantasies, fears, and identities. She doesn't have to confirm or deny anything, because the speculation itself keeps the fascination alive. If you've ever stayed awake wondering what someone really meant, if you've ever analyzed a message over and over, you know the pull of mystery. Taylor magnifies that feeling on a global scale. That's why idolization persists. It's not just about music or even survival anymore. It's about the endless questions that may never be answered. The possibility that behind every smile or lyric lies a secret waiting to be uncovered. And in the end, that mystery might be the strongest fuel of all. When you look back at Taylor Swift's journey, the reasons millions idolize her start to make sense. It isn't just about catchy melodies or flawless performances. It's about something much deeper, the way she has lived her life in public and transformed every scar, every rumor, and every triumph into part of a story people can't stop following. From her beginnings as a teenager with a guitar, writing diary entries that became songs, to the humiliations played out on global stages, Taylor has consistently chosen a path few dare to take. She lets the world see her break, and then she lets the world watch her rebuild. That cycle, vulnerability followed by resilience, is the very heartbeat of idolization. Fans don't just witness her survival. They feel it in their own bones, but there's more. She has turned her career into a labyrinth of clues, secrets, and unanswered questions. Every album, every music video, every coded message feeds the feeling that her life is bigger than what we see on the surface. She invites people to search for hidden meanings, to decode her art, to become part of her story. That sense of participation is rare, and it's why her fans don't just listen to her music. They live inside it. The controversies, the battles, even the humiliations, they all add layers. Instead of destroying her, they gave her the chance to reinvent herself again and again. When she was mocked, she leaned into the mockery. When her reputation was under attack, she built an entire era around it. When the industry tried to own her work, she took it back one album at a time. Each time, she emerged not smaller, but larger, more mythic. And that's the final truth. Taylor Swift's power isn't perfection. It's transformation. She shows her audience that the very things designed to break you, rejection, gossip, betrayal, can be reshaped into something stronger. That message hits at the deepest level of human psychology. Because who hasn't felt humiliated? Who hasn't been underestimated? Who hasn't wished they could rewrite their own story? Taylor doesn't just give fans music. She gives them the possibility of redemption. She proves that wounds can become weapons, that weakness can become myth, and that every fall can be followed by a rise so powerful it makes the fall worth watching. That's why millions don't just like her, they idolize her. Because through her story, they see their own. Not just as it is, but as it could be. And maybe that's the real secret. Taylor Swift doesn't stand as a distant superstar. She stands as a mirror that reflects back your heartbreak, your envy, your longing, and your desire to rise above it all. In the end, the reason people worship Taylor Swift isn't only because of who she is. It's because of who she allows them to believe they can become. Like what you heard? Hit subscribe. There's always more to uncover, and you don't want to miss it.